All right, let's get into it. We're looking at Exodus chapter 22 today. And I know, sometimes a chapter full of laws can feel a little dry. But what's amazing about this one is that it's so much more than a dusty list of rules. It's actually a window into the very character of God. This isn't just a legal code. It's God's own blueprint for a society built on justice, compassion, and holiness. It shows us what he cares about and how he wants us to live with each other.
Okay, so right out of the gate, verse 1 hits us with a core principle for this whole chapter: the absolute importance of making things right. You see, this isn't just about punishing a thief, it's about restoration. From the very beginning, God is saying that when you harm your neighbor, you create a debt. And it's not just a legal debt to the state, it's a relational one that has to be settled to bring peace and balance back to the community.
So this first section is all about that earthly civil justice. And the foundation, the bedrock for the whole thing, is this idea of restitution. You know, before we even get to the more spiritual laws, God lays the groundwork for how people are just supposed to treat each other fairly day in and day out.
And it's so important we get this. Restitution is way more than just saying, "I'm sorry." It's not a fine you pay to a court. The whole point is to make the person who was wronged whole again. It's about repairing the damage and literally reweaving the fabric of the community that was torn by what happened. It's personal. It's relational.
Now check this out, because the details here are fascinating. Notice how the payback amount changes. If the stolen animal is found alive and it can be given back, the thief has to pay back double. But if the thief has already sold it or killed it, basically if they've destroyed the other person's livelihood, the penalty is way higher. 5 times for an ox, which was like your tractor back then. This isn't random. It's a justice system that understands the real-world impact of the crime.
And this just brilliantly shows the wisdom of the lawgiver. God's justice isn't a blunt instrument. It's incredibly discerning. The law makes a huge distinction between someone defending their home in the dead of night when it's dark, you're terrified, you don't know what's happening, and using lethal force in broad daylight when you can see the threat clearly and call for help. It shows such a deep understanding of real human situations.
And this idea of personal accountability just keeps rolling. It's not only about stuff you do on purpose, like stealing. No, if your campfire gets out of control and burns your neighbor's field, that's on you. If your ox wanders into someone else's vineyard and eats their crops, you have to make it right. We are responsible for our actions, for our property, and even for our carelessness.
Okay, so now the chapter starts to build on that foundation of civil justice. The focus kind of shifts from protecting property to protecting something even more precious: the moral and spiritual health of the entire nation. Think of these next laws as a firewall against things that would corrupt the community from the inside out.
I know some of these can sound really harsh to our modern ears, but you have to see them as guardrails. They're there to protect people. They protect women from being exploited. They forbid dabbling in dark spiritual forces. They outlaw acts that twist and defile the image of God and people. And that last one, the law against idolatry, that's the big one. It preserves the nation's exclusive relationship with the one true God, who is the source of all their life and protection.
And now we come to what I really believe is the emotional and theological core of this whole chapter. This is where the laws stop feeling like just rules on a page, and instead they become a direct reflection of God's own passionate character. We get to see what truly moves the heart of the lawgiver himself.
And this is a truth that just rings through the ages. The real measure of a society that follows God, it's not its army, it's not its wealth, it's how it treats the people who have no power, how it cares for the ones who can't defend themselves. That, right there, is the ultimate test of righteousness.
So why does God single out these specific groups? Well, think about it. In the ancient world, a stranger had no family or tribe to back them up. A widow had lost her husband, her provider. An orphan had no one. The poor had nothing. They were the ones who could be most easily taken advantage of. So God himself steps in and basically declares, hands off. These people are under my personal protection.
This is one of the most powerful statements in all of Scripture. This is not some detached legal warning. It's a deeply personal promise from God. He doesn't just say he hears the cry of the oppressed. He says, I will surely hear. And his response is anything but passive. His justice, his wrath, burns hot against anyone who would mistreat them. It reveals a God of incredible compassion and, at the same time, a fierce protective love.
And here's where it gets incredibly practical, right down to your wallet. If your brother, your fellow countryman, is in need, You're commanded to lend to him freely. You are absolutely forbidden from using his moment of desperation to make a profit. This law strikes right at the heart of greed and calls for a kind of radical generosity within the community of God's people.
So, we've seen God's standards for justice between people. We've seen his passionate heart for the vulnerable. So what's the right response to a God like this? Well, the chapter wraps up by showing us a life of reverence, of holiness, of devotion back to him.
Now, it's really important to see this isn't some checklist you follow to earn God's love. It's the natural overflow of a heart that actually gets who he is. You honor him and the leaders he's put in place. You acknowledge he's the source of everything by giving back the first and the best. You recognize that all life belongs to him. And you live in a way that just marks you as different, as his holy people.
When you step back and look at the whole chapter, you see this beautiful logical flow. The laws start with our horizontal relationships, how we treat each other with justice and fairness, and they end with our vertical relationship, how we relate to God. And it shows us that you absolutely cannot separate the two. You can't claim to love God, who you can't see, if you aren't treating your neighbor, who you can see, with justice and compassion.
So we're left with this question, right? Because these principles are timeless. Why? Because the character of God is timeless. And that means they challenge us today, right where we live. They force us to look at our communities, our workplaces, our own hearts and ask, are we the kind of people who make things right? Do we go out of our way to protect the vulnerable? Does the way we live our lives show reverence for the God who gave us this incredible blueprint for a truly good society?